Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the archive! This week, I continue my series on the history of BattleTech by talking about, in broad overview and broad sweeps, the First, Second, and Third Succession Wars. And I'm also going to touch on a little organization called the Starleague Bureau of Communications, later known as Comstar, and some of their philosophy and goals and activities. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we talk about the Succession Wars. If you were to put the blame for the Succession Wars at the feet of any one individual, it would be Minoru Kurita. Minoru Kurita, as the coordinator of the Draconis Combine and the representative for the Draconis Combine on the Starleague Council, declared himself First Lord of the Starleague. Soon, all the other leaders of the Great Houses declared themselves First Lord of the Starleague. And thus began the Succession Wars. Combat, warfare, to basically say who can unify the Inner Sphere under their banner. This is why they're called the Succession Wars, because they were fought over the succession of the Starleague. Now, there was one last action by the Starleague Great Council. The leader of the Taurian Concordat, realizing, because of how the Taurians were so fond of using nuclear weapons, what was going to happen, declared Jerome Blake as the head of the Starleague Department of Communications. Blake did two things. First, he reformed the Department of Communications, which runs all the hyperpulse generators through the Inner Sphere and the periphery, into a multinational, neutral corporation. Then, he rallied various Starleague units that had not left with Alexander Kerensky to Earth, to Terra, and declared it a neutral world. Let's be honest, the House Lords did not like this. But they were kind of busy with their own things to really go and deal with a bureaucrat with some military forces declaring the home of humanity a neutral place. And I also think, ultimately, there was some thinking about how they would eventually need a place that was neutral to hash out treaties and such. That's just a theory, but it kind of makes sense. Now, the initial stages of the Succession Wars involved the Great Houses rushing into the area formerly ruled by the Terran hegemony, formerly ruled by House Cameron, and seizing worlds. These were worlds that had high tech, had valuable resources, had valuable data and Starleague secrets, and Starleague caches, and would help provide the stuff that they need to fight a war. One of the worlds seized in this was by the Lyrans. Hesperus. Hesperus is an important world, but we'll get to that in a bit. Because the most important world in the First Succession War was not Terra. It was not the vast factory complex at Hesperus. It was a small agricultural world. Kentaris 4. You see, during the First Succession War, the Combine had pushed hard into the Federated Suns, and they were one jump away from the capital. But they could not take it. You see, their main supply depot had actually been blockaded and taken. So they had to set up a new forward operating base. That new world, picked by Minoru Kurita, was Kentaris. And the battle for Kentaris was going well. You know, the military forces of the armed forces of the Federated Suns had been driven off the main continent and been to one location, and were thus able to be dealt with at their leisure. But, of course, in any such conquest of a planet, you have irregular forces left behind. One of these irregular forces was a sniper. Now, Minoru Kurita stopped at a point and got out of his battle master, accompanied by a Shinto priest and a bodyguard of other warriors. Because where he was such a beautiful place, he wanted to get out and enjoy it personally. Well, a sniper sees a man in a Draconis Combine mustard soldiery uniform with colonel stripes. He doesn't know who he's targeting, but he takes one shot and kills the coordinator of the Combine. Word gets back to New Avalon as to what just happened. And the son of the coordinator, now the new coordinator, was known to be an extremely volatile person. So, to keep him from venting his wrath on the military personnel, a desperate evacuation was staged of the Federated Suns military personnel. And when Junjiro Kurita arrives on Kentaris 4, he has no military to vent his rage on. With no military, who's he going to take it out on? He issues a famous order. This order would ultimately be the end of the Combine's advances in the First Succession War. It's a simple order. 3 words. Kill them all. What precedes is 3 months of the Combine butchering every civilian they can find, killing their way through cities and towns and villages and farms. Eventually, Junjiro orders them to not give these people the glory of dying to modern weapons, orders them to all be beheaded. The crew of his daimyo transport, his daimyo mobile command center, secretly smuggle data, footage of what's going on to the Comstar operatives on Centaurus 4. And those operatives desperately start transmitting the data. Everything they can. Even as the HPG is under attack. The HPG, of course, was defended by forces of its own. Most likely at this time, because Comguard have not been formed yet, most likely mercenaries. But the data keeps getting sent out. From there, the Combine is demoralized. The troops of the Draconis Combine Muster Soldiery cannot accept what they did, or what they were ordered to do, or what others of their military were ordered to do. And so, the now galvanized armed forces of the Federated Suns hit a demoralized enemy, driving them back. Eventually, the First Succession War ends. The Second Succession War begins, but the First Succession War was interesting. The First Succession War, any pretext of the Ares Conventions was abandoned. Atrocities, nuclear weapons, etc. were all used wildly. 9 out of 10 warships were destroyed. Half of all jump ships were destroyed over the course of the First Succession War. The fighting, because of the use of the weapons in particular, were causing technology to be lost. Factories and weapon systems got blown up. Data got lost. The Second Succession War was, in many ways, worse. By the end of the Second Succession War, no warships existed in the Inner Sphere, except for the one over Tharkad, the capital of the Lyran Commonwealth. After the Second Succession War, the horrors of the war were such. First off, there was more technological backsliding. How to even do some things got forgotten. Some common things. The Second Succession War spelled the doom for many worlds that without Star League knowledge and technology were not habitable. And in the early stages of the second, late stages of the first, a new person rises to the head of Comstar. An individual by the name of Jerome Blake. Not Jerome Blake. Conrad Toyama. Conrad Toyama changes Comstar radically. He changes it into something very different, and its shadow will be passed through the rest of the Succession Wars. As we go into the Third Succession War, things have changed drastically. But one thing has not changed. Comstar holds the keys to the most advanced technology in the inner sphere. They hold Terra and every factory in Terra, Mars, the shipyards of Titan, everything. But they're the phone police. Oh, they're the phone company. And, well, Conrad Toyama makes a decision. Partly this is as a means to protect Comstar from infiltration, but partly it is a means to obscure how the technology works. Toyama turns Comstar into a quasi-mystical monastic order. He creates specific rituals that must be done to send broadcasts through the HPG. He creates religious themes for using every piece of technology that Comstar uses on a regular basis. And then he uses their covert ops team to enforce it. Initially, a Comstar acolyte might be saying the prayers because there might be a ROM agent standing nearby to kill him. After a generation or two, they say the prayers because they believe the technology will not work without them. Now, the Second Succession War left many worlds devastated, caused much technology to be lost. The great factory world of Hesperus II in the Lyran Commonwealth, now, it was originally a Star League factory, is one of the few places able to turn out some of the largest and most powerful mechs. Mechs like the Atlas and the Zeus. And no one knew how it operated. Or should I say, eventually, no one would know how it operated. Star League factories were what were called black box factories. You put parts in, finished product came out the other side. They would figure out enough to be able to mostly repair the machinery, to reprogram it to do things with standard internal structure, not endosteel, standard armor, not ferrofibrous, work in standard engines, not XL engines. But ultimately, it was no one could really build a mech anymore. By some point in the Third Succession War, no one knew how to design and build a new mech design. It would not be until the tail end of the third, beginning of the fourth, when the first new mechs would be seen in the inner sphere again. The first new aerospace fighters would be seen again. The first new technological systems in general would be seen again. The Third Succession War was a period of slow, grinding technological stagnation and decline. The technology was only a little better than what was seen at the tail end of the Age of War. And it began to slowly grind away. And part of the blame for that lies with Conrad Toyama. He had this idea. You see, part of Jerome Blake's idea for Comstar was that it would preserve technology. It would be an archive and save every bit of technology it could. Toyama added a twist to this that one day, as the technological decline reached a certain point, the Comguard, the Comstar Order, in and of itself, the most advanced technology in the inner sphere, would come forth and bestow the great technological wisdom that they had protected and secured for centuries onto the poor people of the inner sphere. This would be at a point when they were ready, when Comstar would be like gods stepping onto a world. And to help ensure this, Operation Holy Shroud was implemented. You see, you have a battle going on a planet. Mechs are fighting near a factory. Oops, a stray shot blew up that factory. But was it? Was it really a stray shot? Or did somebody just wait till someone fired a weapon in the general direction of that factory and go click, click, boom? No one knows. No one knows how many factories were destroyed by Comstar ROM agents. No one knows how many scientists were murdered by Comstar ROM agents. No one knows how many Starlink memory cores were sabotaged and erased by ROM agents. But ultimately, Comstar implemented this program. They assisted in the decline of technology. What's ironic is it is this very action that led to a number of the policies by the great houses during the Third Succession War. See, if you can't replace a jump ship or a drop ship, you're going to generally try to capture it intact. Failing that, you're just going to let it go. Because you want them to let your dropships and jump ships go. You might fight a battle and take out one mech, and then your opponent retreats. You might have an enemy lance defending a planet. You come in with a lance of mechs and two aerospace fighters. And the forces you're fighting realize they can't win because you brought better forces. Instead of fighting a guerrilla campaign, they'll negotiate terms of evacuation and surrender. You'll generally try to capture or cripple a mech rather than destroy it. And this will eventually lead the successor lords and the successor houses to develop a sort of neo-feudal system where mech warriors are considered knights and they fight with this sense of honor. Some houses never really go full into it, but there is still that sense of enlightened self-interest that, hey, if we let you go, you're probably going to let us go later. If we kill you to a man, you're probably going to kill us to a man as well. Or your military is the next time they fight. So, that was how the Third Succession War went. And it never actually had a sort of official end treaty. It was more just everyone got so tired of this war that they just stopped fighting. Now note, the first two succession wars were about 50 years, give or take, combined between the two of them. The Third Succession War was 200 years of low-intensity warfare. And it ended in 3025. But events happened in 3025 that were about to change the inner sphere yet again. So, next week, I will talk about the Helm Memory Core, its repercussions, and the Fourth Succession War. So until then, I'd like you all to remember to have fun and keep gaming.